This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe Birthday Boy. And the birthday boy for today, March the 16th, is a player who's not alive. Normally, I do want on somebody who is still actively alive, or an active player for that matter. But because I did March 16th and I did everything that, have been um, birthday boys that have not been dead. So anyway, I I'm gonna do this guy. He's an icon for the Buffalo Sabres in net, and was their first star goalie before Dominic Hasek was even a thought. His name was Roger Crozier, who was born March 16, 1942, in Bracebridge, Ontario, one of 14 children. He seemed to like being a goalie and all that. He went to the OHA, which is the predecessor to the OHL, and played for St. Catharines. At the time, they were sponsored by the Chicago Blackhawks, which meant that the Blackhawks had the rights to all the TP's players. And Crozier would help St. Catharines win the Memorial Cup, the big junior hockey tournament held in Canada every year. So he won the trophy in 1960. He was not really a favorite with scouts or critics because of his small frame and size, but he was only 5'8". But the AHL's Buffalo Bisons recruited Crozier to fill in for Denny Stuchardi, playing a few games. Back then, you could go to the AHL and still go to the OHL and all that. So he did all that. While playing in the minors, he adopted the butterfly style, which he used in his goaltending career. People tried to convince him not to do so, but Crozier did not listen and added some acrobacy. Chicago would trade his rights to Detroit in 1963. He would play in the Eastern Professional League with St. Louis and also for the AHL's Buffalo Bisons. But in 1964, he was given the chance to play for Detroit's AHL affiliate in Pittsburgh and won top rookie. He played 15 games for the Red Wings as a call-up for the injured Terry Sawchuk and was so good that Detroit surprisingly left Sawchuk unprotected during the time that they had the intra-league waiver draft, meaning that you could pick up players from other NHL teams while being an NHL team. And so Sawchuk was left unprotected, and the Leafs swiped him up. So Crozier would be Detroit's number one going forward. And at 22, his rookie season, he started all of his team's games, being the last goalie to do so in the NHL. I thought Ed Johnston was. But anyway, he put up 40 wins and 6 shutouts, respectively, and Detroit did not regret making him start goalie. He had the second best goals against average and was named the Calder Trophy winner for NHL's top rookie, hands down, I believe. Unfortunately, he would start getting pancreatitis by his sophomore season and would miss some time throughout many years. However, in his sophomore year, he did win 27 games and led the league in shutouts with 7. Say at that. The Red Wings went on to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Habs in '66, and actually we're up 2-0. We're halfway there. But somehow the Red Wings came back to win the next 4 and win the Stanley Cup. It didn't help that Crozier suffered a massive leg injury in Game 4 and practically lost his mobility. Despite all that, Crozier was given the Conn Smythe Trophy for being the MVP of the playoffs, because without it, Detroit would definitely have not been to the playoffs even. It was only the second year that the Conn Smythe Trophy was given to a player, because in 1965 it was given to Jean Beliveau as the first ever winner. So not only was he the first goalie to win the award, he was the first player to win it in a losing effort. Something that's been done not too many times. If memory serves me right, Reggie Leach in 1976 did it. Ron Hextall in 87, Jay Shiger in 2003, I think that's it. Anyway, yeah. So he kept getting pancreatitis and all that. And when he had suffered another bout of it by the start of the 1967-68 season, Crozier decided, screw that, I'm going to retire because of stress, depression, and trying to help it get his pancreas down. However, 6 weeks later, he returned to the ice and back to Detroit. Detroit was not really that well formed and all that. They've watched it. So anyway, he would be traded during the 1970 NHL expansion draft. In 1970 expansion draft, Buffalo drafted Tom Webster and then promptly traded him to Detroit for the rights to Roger Crozier. So Crozier was a Buffalo Sabre, and Punch Imlach knew what he was doing. He wanted an established goalie to help Buffalo out in their infancy. He started the Sabres' first ever game on October 10th, 1970 against Pittsburgh, helping them beat the Penguins 2-1. Crozier by late December would have exhaustion problems, and the Sabres goalie duties fell upon Joe Daly and Dave Dryden, otherwise known as Ken's brother. Crozier would finish the first season with the Sabres with 9 wins, 20 losses, 7 ties, and a .368 goals against average. He had to have his gallbladder removed during the offseason, too. Crozier was peppered with shots by the second season in Sabres history, only winning 13 games that year. He faced over 2,100 shots, something that's still a Sabres record. But the Sabres did improve by 1973 and in their third season got to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Crozier did much better. They would face Montreal and lose in 6 games. His playing time would be greatly reduced because of pancreatitis, and now he had ulcers and gallbladder problems, despite losing his gallbladder. He did help the Sabres do well with a great goaltending platoon with Jerry Desjardins. Sabres won the Adams division. Crozier would only play 5 games in the playoffs, 2 in the Stanley Cup Finals. So anyway, Crozier would play in the famous Fog game in 1975 when the Sabres and Flyers had their Cup Finals game be drastically reduced to pea soup because of the fact that Buffalo didn't have air conditioning and all that. So yeah, there was a heat wave hitting the arena and no air conditioning inside it. The temperature increased. Desjardins was the starting goalie, but after giving up 3 goals in the first period, Crozier came in. And Crozier did quite well, giving up only 1 goal and helping the Sabres win that Fog game in overtime. Then Crozier was given the Game 6 start against the Flyers, trying to force a 7th and deciding game. He did pretty good for the first 2 periods, shutting out the Flyers. However, the Sabres were shut out themselves. It was 0-0. And despite giving up only 2 goals in the third period, the Flyers did win the game 2-0 in the Stanley Cup. So Crozier had his third trip to the Stanley Cup Finals be less than fruitful, if you ask me. So anyway, he had his persisting ailments and would lose more playing time. And in March 1977, the Sabres traded him to Washington, who were floundering as they were early on. He played 3 games for the Caps, then retired. After retiring, Crozier served in the Capitals front office. He was actually GM during the 82 season. And under his watch, he was the guy who told Washington, you need to pick Scott Stevens from the OHL and Memorial Cup champion Kitchener Rangers. So that's how Scott Stevens got to Washington. He would move to Wilmington, Delaware in 1983 to work at MBNA Bank and become the executive vice president. Unfortunately, cancer would claim Crozier at the age of 53 in 1996, survived by his wife and 2 daughters. The NHL announced that Roger Crozier's name will be attached to an award called the Roger Crozier Saving Grace Award, which was given to the goalie who posted the best save percentage. And that was actually an award from 2002 to 2007. It's inducted to the Buffalo Sports Hall of Fame, and why not? You helped the floundering Sabres get through the first few years of their expansion, their growing pains, if you will. In his NHL career, he would put up 206 wins in 518 games with Detroit, Buffalo, and Washington, a 14 and 16 postseason mark. This much. He won the Memorial Cup, the Calder, and the Conn Smythe Trophy. So, anyway, it's just huge and all that. You know, yeah, 5 times that the Stanley Cup went to a losing player. Roger Crozier, Reggie Leach, Ron Hextall, Jay Shuger, and Glenn Hall. Yeah, Glenn Hall I missed. But anyway, you get the picture. As it was a beautiful time. Roger Crozier was a beautiful goaltender. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond to do.